Welcome to The Poverty Analyst, the podcast where we explore the hidden stories behind the places we live. Today, we are looking at the housing in Paris, how different neighborhoods developed, why some areas remain poor, and what history can tell us about today's housing crisis. Paris is famous for its beauty, grand streets, and expensive homes. But behind the glamour, there are big differences in how people live. Some have stable housing, while others struggle to find places to live. Let's start with formal housing. Paris has worked to provide affordable homes, especially for lower-income families. One of its biggest programs is the HLM, Habitation à l'Œuvre Moderne. This program offers government sustainability housing, helping people stay in the city even as rent rises. Public housing in Paris started in the early 1900s, but after World War II, the city built many more affordable homes. The goal was to help the growing population, including workers, move from the countryside. But there is a downside. Most public housing is built outside the city center, separating lower-income people from wealthier areas. This means many people live far from their jobs, schools, public service, and making daily life harder. This also allows for class division, where the high-income groups self-segregate and reject socialized housing in their communities, forcing lower-income individuals into areas and neighborhoods with lower living standards. This is the reason for high concentration of property in the specific region of northeastern Paris and not dispersed throughout the city. This is the reason for high concentration of poverty in one specific region, the northeast region of Paris, and not dispersed throughout the city. Because of the self-segregation, poverty-stricken neighborhoods are excluded from the central business district. The CBD in Paris is made up of 1st, 2nd, 8th, 9th, 17th of Paris. The 1st and 2nd make up the central region of the city, 8th and 9th slightly more north. Now looking at informal housing. What happens when there aren't enough affordable homes? Many people end up with informal housing. Example, Cécine Saint-Denis, one of the poorest areas near Paris, is home to many struggling families, migrants, and refugees. This also includes areas like Barbès and Châteauï, which are considered to have some of the poorest people and the highest levels of crime and gang activity. Their poverty has come from various sources, some including unemployment, lack of affordable housing, and social exclusion. The unemployment rate in Paris has varied from around 6.8 to 9.2% of the population. In these neighborhoods, many people live in homeless camps, shelters, or abandoned buildings. High rents, unstable jobs, and little social support leaves them with no other options. Charities and governments try to help, but the problem continues. This isn't new. In the past, Paris had places called the Cour des Miracles, or, in English, the Court of Miracles. In the 16 and 1700s, these neighborhoods were filled with beggars and criminals. That's where they lived. During the day, they would beg in the city, but at night, they returned to the hidden areas and appeared to be miraculously healed from any fake injuries or illnesses they had used to get money, hence the name Miracle. The original Court of Miracles was destroyed when Paris was redesigned in the 1800s, but today, many of the poorest people still live in the shadows, in unstable and unsafe conditions, just like centuries ago. Looking at a map of Paris, the poorest include the 18th and 19th, which have the highest rates of poverty. Now, looking at why do impoverished areas persist? Well, you can look at the poor neighborhoods don't happen by accident. You look at the high cost of living because it is too expensive to live in central Paris, so poor must move to cheaper areas. The city planning choices. When Paris was redesigned in the 1800s, poor people were pushed out of the city center. Also looking at discrimination, because many people in these areas are immigrants who face difficulties finding jobs, housing, and education. And a lack of investment. Areas like Cécine Saint-Denis don't get as much money for schools, transportation, and public services as wealthier neighborhoods. Now, some recommendations that we would like to say. Because even though these problems are big, the policymakers and urban planners can't take steps to improve the situation. Increasing public housing availability, strengthening tenant protections, and investing in underfunctioned suburban areas could make housing more equitable. Expanding rent control policies and improving public transportation to connect suburban residents with job opportunities in Central Paris are essential strategies. Some experts suggest a combination of short-term solutions, such as increasing emergency shelters and providing rental assistance, and long-term policies, including tax incentives and for affordable housing development, stricter regulations on speculative real estate investments, and greater funding for social services in impoverished areas. Paris is a city of contrast, beauty, and wealth. What next? Struggle and poverty. By looking at the history of housing, we can better understand today's issues and think about ways to make the city fair for everyone. Thank you.